अच्छा, हमने सारी बात कर ली about all these discussions you've had. Have your has what you've learned on the podcast been in any way completely different to what you expected from Pakistan ke masle masail, or has what you've heard largely been in line with what you suspected? Basically, I'm going to ask you to try and summarize Pakistan mein masle kya hain,
Hmm.
in your view. But throughout these like 100 episodes nearly, um, have your suspicions been confirmed mostly, or has there also been like stuff where like, oh shit, acha, if this is true, then I was not on the right path?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of both. Mostly it's been sort of on point in terms of what I figured the issues were. But some have been shocking, not as a, oh, I was wrong about this, but oh, how I underestimated the problem itself. Like, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Adil Mansoor, I'm trying to get him on the show again in the next couple of weeks. He writes for Business Recorder, does fantastic research on agriculture. Okay? I've had him a couple of times talk about agriculture markets, particularly wheat. कि मतलब why is it that मतलब बचपन से लेके आज तक जो है 2 साल गंदम बहुत ज्यादा होती है, तीसरे साल शॉर्टेज हो जाती है, फिर हम इंपोर्ट करते हैं, फिर कुछ मसला हो जाता है, राइट? कि ये क्यों, मतलब है क्या चक्कर? And he's looked at it and explained it, right? So he confirmed most of what I knew to be true, but then he shares other data where, for example, there is, you've heard of circular debt in Pakistan,
Mm.
right? बिजली के अंदर और गैस के अंदर there is circular debt in the commodity sector in Pakistan. वो तकरीबन 1 ट्रिलियन रुपए तक पहुंच चुका है. ठीक है, ये दिस इज बेसिकली जो हुकूमतें पाकिस्तान के अंदर इंक्लूडिंग पंजाब एंड सिंध इन पर्टिकुलर मिनिमम सपोर्ट प्राइस सेट करती हैं गंदम की, उसको प्रोक्योर करती हैं और फिर उसको आगे मार्केट में बेचती हैं फ्लावर बनाने के लिए. उसके अंदर देयर इज ऑलवेज अ गैप बिटवीन व्हाट द गवर्नमेंट बाइज द व्हीट फॉर and the price it releases it to, and there's a negative, so loss, right? तो उसकी वजह से commodity debt बनता है.
So the
वो एक
government
ट्रिलियन
sells at a
तक
loss. Acha.
usually. So when it sells at a loss, the debt piles up and it's close to 1 trillion rupees at this point. And the situation is so grim that governments are now, if I remember what Adil said correctly, governments are now borrowing money to pay interest on the loans that they owe to the banks.
Why does the government sell at a loss? Just that's
Because
subsidizing the
we
thing?
believe as a country that we need to have cheaper atta.
Acha.
And so the government intervenes in the market, plays a huge role in the wheat market. And so the issue in the wheat sector is not that there's some mafia or some sort of like, wo ho sakta hai, kuch
Hoarding
corruption
वगैरह.
ho, rent seeking ho, kuch ho sakta hai. But the core reason why all of this happens is that the government has a major footprint in the market itself. And it's an inefficient player and it enters the market and it distorts it. And through those distortions, everything goes around, right? And to me that was like, oh crap, like, the situation is much more grim than what I envisioned it to be. But
Yeah.
on the flip side, the solution is also much more easier,
Hmm.
which is that market ko apna kaam karne do. Like, and he gave me this example and others have written about this too. If you look at sugarcane, wheat, and rice in Pakistan, sugarcane का क्राइसिस हर दफा होता है, गंदम का क्राइसिस हर दफा होता है, चावल का क्राइसिस आपने कभी होता हुआ सुना नहीं होगा. What's the difference? And चावल हम एक्सपोर्ट करते हैं, by the way.
Yes, yes.
And
बासमती
right,
पे पट्टे चल रहे हैं.
बासमती हम XXI, XXII एक्सपोर्ट
Yeah,
करते हैं,
yeah,
यूरोप अमेरिका में मिलता है.
yeah.
तो why is it कि दो मार्केट्स में क्राइसिस होता है और तीसरी जो हम इंपोर्ट एक्सपोर्ट करते हैं उसमें नहीं होता? क्योंकि चावल की मार्केट में गवर्नमेंट का इतना रोल नहीं है. So this market में गवर्नमेंट इंटरवीन करती है किसी भी market, and this is economic theory, right? It's an inefficient player. It's leading to a loss of consumer welfare, and that's what's happening. But you will rarely talk and hear anyone talk about market-oriented reforms in the agricultural sector, especially in wheat and sugarcane, because the entire incentive mechanism is structured in a way that it's leading to rents which the taxpayer is paying for through subsidies. उस सब्सिडी की मद में डेट भी बढ़ रहा है, ठीक है, तो टैक्स पेयर उसके भी कंट्रीब्यूट कर रहा है ओवर टाइम टू पे बैक दैट डेट विद इंटरेस्ट, और उसके मद में उसको सस्ता आटा भी नहीं मिल रहा, लेकिन ये काम चले जा रहा है. वो गंदम स्मगल भी हो जाता है, प्राइस भी बढ़ जाती है, मिलता भी नहीं है, हम सब्सिडी भी दे रहे हैं, टैक्स पेयर उस पर भी खर्चा कर रहा है, लेकिन चल रहा है काम.
What I would suspect or ask about if SK, I mean, if this guy, if your expert knows this, and obviously many other people know this as well, the government को भी पता होगा ये बात. So why are they still, everything in my mind in Pakistan, I think कि कहीं ना कहीं somebody is making money, somebody in power, and therefore they will, like वो वाली बात that you said, कि it's in the interest of the status quo to maintain the status quo. The loss is not affecting them, but the process is netting them some sort of kickback, skimming, whatever, which is my professional job related bias. कि वो करते रहेंगे वो. Is that somewhere close to the reality here?
Absolutely, that's
Oh,
the
अच्छा.
issue.
Oh, no, I was
Yeah,
hoping you'd say no.